where we train and capacitate organization and communities at large, where we hold community dialogues, educating them and capacitating them on human rights and access to human rights and how to hold those violate their rights accountable. And we also have another program called network coordination, because we are a network by our own, because we are comprised of 26 member organization where we provide our support.
Thank you so much, Fulu. I will ask
through other net organization.
Sorry. Carry on. It just completed. It's fine. I thought you just had a break, so I thought you stopped.
Okay. No, I was saying our third program is the network coordination, where we coordinate members and we coordinate organization in order to build solidarities with other networks so that we can work in a coordinated and very collaborative advocacy voice, so that our work carries weight and we support each other and we share resources, we share skills, we share ideas. And the last activity is the information sharing and distribution, where we develop and distribute human rights material that can be distributed physically as a hard copies to communities and target beneficiaries or to organizations. And they are also found online, where we share with our target beneficiary. And we also become an information hub on issues of migration and advocacy. So that's where we are. And then the issue of COVID-19 has actually impacted on our work, because quite a number of our work in varsity building, but we are trying our utmost best to work remotely through virtual meetings and other platforms, that to see that the work gets to be done, so that our target beneficiaries, including other people, including the citizens, don't get to be discriminated during the COVID-19, because life is at stake. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Fulu. So last speaker that I will ask Emir Sheikh, that who is the speaker of African or spokesperson of African Diaspora Forum, just to give information about what is African Diaspora Forum all about, and then what are the activities and how COVID-19 affected them. For 2 minutes, please.
Attila, thank you very much, and thanks to Universal Rights Association for giving us the opportunity. My name is Amir Sheikh. I'm the spokesperson for the African Diaspora Forum, which is a federation of migrant associations from 35 African, Asian, Caribbean, and European countries, having formed after the mass xenophobic attack, on the aftermath of the mass xenophobic attack in 2008 here in South Africa, where more than 100 migrants were uprooted from their society and found themselves in internally displaced camps. And that is when we started. And as a spokesperson now, or the organization, what it does is that actually being an association of migrants, I represent the Somali Community Board, which is actually the one representing the Somalis. That's my capacity as the chair. The chair of the forum is also the chairperson of the Sudanese community, and that is how we continue. And the work we do is any work that actually, or anything that affects the migrant community, in collaboration or with partnership with actually valuable organizations like the Consortium of Refuges and Migrants in South Africa, the Lawyers for Human Rights, and any others. In terms of how actually the COVID affected our members, I represent one of the most vulnerable communities that has actually youngsters who have migrated to South Africa from a very humble background, that were the supporting pillar for most of their communities, and that are finding themselves now indoor with no actually any support from the government, discriminated in the stimulus plan, discriminated in all other actually relief efforts because of their status in the country. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I would like to come to you, Sharon. Can you please give us brief information that what are the lockdown rules in terms of asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants and their rights? How did they change? How should an asylum seeker, refugee, or migrant renew their papers if they will? or if they have to or not? What happens if it is already expired, or it will expire very soon? Are they allowed to? So let's finish this side, and then I will carry on and then repeat the question of if they are allowed to work or go to hospital with an expired paper, and so forth. So just please give us a brief information. How are the rules has changed and what they need to do now?
Okay, thanks, Attila. I'll go through and I've made quite a comprehensive preparation, so covering quite a few of the issues. I think, as you pointed out, opening this conference or this video discussion we're having, that the COVID-19 is a global humanitarian crisis, and the World Health Organization, various other bodies have said that it's the worst health crisis that the world has experienced for over a century now. And I just want to make one point clear, which I think we should all take into account, that globally, hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers are risking their lives in treating and responding to those infected by the virus. And that's an incredible act of solidarity. And it's not just doctors and nurses, it includes community health workers. And when we are talking and when we're considering this virus, we need to think about the central role that they are playing and how they're being excluded from their families at huge cost in order to treat people that are contracting the virus. You've made points around how our numbers are increasing. While it's not the same as we saw in Spain and in America, but I think it's worrying that our figures are still going up, and we need to be concerned about that. Now, some of the questions that refugees, migrants, asylum seekers may ask is if they can renew their permit or their visa. And I think we've received a written confirmation from the Department of Home Affairs that the Refugee Reception Office was going to be closed from the 27th of March right until the 16th of April. But with the extension of the lockdown, then it will extend until the end of April. And if refugee asylum permits or visas have expired during this period, we have been given the assurity that no one will be penalized or arrested, and that they are required then to renew their permit within 30 days of the lockdown. And this includes status determination processes, interviews with the Refugee Appeal Authority, and anything in relation to the asylum system in our country. Now, what I want to flag for discussion following our inputs is our concern following the lifting of the lockdown, that there are going to be hundreds of people that are going to need to have their status regularized. And so in collaboration with other organizations, including the Scalabrini Institute for Global Migration, we're proposing a call for a general amnesty on documentation for the lifting of the lockdown, and that will enable people to have enough time and not feel anxious and rush off to the refugee reception offices, because as we can see from China and from countries in Europe, that there is a period even after they've seen a drop in the rates of new infection where people can get reinfected. So we need to think post the lockdown of measures we can take, and I want to propose that included in this conversation, consider supporting that call, and we can circulate the documentation if organizations and individuals want to support that. Yes. We want, the second question is, can I keep my spaza shop open? Now, we've seen that there's been some controversy, and we've done some work with both COMSA and with ADF. And, the Minister of Small Development, Business Development, she's been controversial in her statements, but it's been categorical from the government that there is no distinction between South African and foreign-owned shops. But what we are finding, as Amir can also attest, is that experience on the ground is not the same, and that the regulations are not being adhered to. So at this point, I would recommend that we get as much information about this that we can address it as Lawyers for Human Rights, as other legal partners, because our hotline, what happens is we receive calls where there's people are having problems, legal problems, needing advice. And there's a whole team nationally of lawyers who are working pro bono who want to help and assist on these issues and can assist in action, whether it's legal action or whether it's writing a letter to query and correct the situation. So I want to just emphasize that we use the legal hotline. The number is 276607688845. And there's someone, LHR is hosting it at the moment, and people can call that number and a lawyer will respond, a legal representative in every case that gets sent through that number. Attila, can I continue or should I stop?
No. I just would like to just say two things. That first of all, that you talked about the second wave. They call it second wave, as we experienced in Japan and in Singapore and some other countries. It can even, and then it has already started in Wuhan as well, the second wave. So we need to also be careful in terms of the second wave. So that's very important. But I would like to just come to that point that you made, that let's say that if I have asylum seeker paper and I have a spaza shop, or I am working for a certain company or certain shop. So I have right to carry on my work, and I have right to carry on my business as usual, even though I have no opportunity to renew my paper. Is it right? Sharon? Sharon?
Just like with everyone else during this period, we are not, other than essential services that are stipulated in the regulations, people have to stay at home. And I think that this is the point that Amir was raising before we started, is that there's severe impact, particularly on people working in the informal sector, and particularly then including foreign nationals, migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, who are unable to go out every day and earn a living, and they are starving. And none of the government's packages that our president spoke about yesterday include people who don't have a South African ID, and that's the discrimination, and we need to talk about what we're going to do about that. So I hope that clarifies your question. The regulations make very clear that there's certain things that are essential services, and spaza shops are part of that in terms of local accessibility for basic needs that people have during the period of the lockdown.
If they are and if they are stopped by police, that they are still able to carry on, even though that they are unable to renew their papers, they are still able to carry on their life normally.
Yes, I mean,
yes.
It's
so
clear that.
Okay, so we are agreed on that. So I would like to come to Fulu, but we also have Abigail on the side of Fulu from Kormsa, but I will start with Fulu, and then later on, that when it comes to that, especially babies and children's rights and situations during the lockdown, that I will ask Abigail to just join in and then give us some information. But Fulu, do you have anything to complete Sharon, if she has missed anything, or if they have anything else if you have anything else to add and give more information later on about the situation?
Thank you very much, and thank you, Sharon, for that comprehensive outlining of the current situation. I think just to add few points from what Sharon has indicated, because what we are talking about here, hence we have stay home and save life. The most important thing here is life, and not just life, but quality life free from harm and other hazardous infections such as the COVID-19. And what comes within that life is the characteristics that asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants need to have in order to have a proper life. Such shelter, you will remember that quite a number of refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants, they depend on rental accommodation, on rental shelters. And on the regulation, it was clearly indicated that during this lockdown period, any eviction based on the non-payment on other related issues because caused by the impact of the COVID-19. So I think it's the issue that we need to carry forward, and it needs to be reiterated very strongly so that the landlords, the people who owns the property where refugees, migrants, and asylum seekers, including the citizens themselves where they are renting, they should not find themselves on the street. That can then lead or expose them to further infection or expose them to other hazardous issues that may come with COVID-19. And the other issue, it's issue of access to healthcare system. As COMSA previously, we did a statement calling for non-exclusionary measures so that it can be inclusive, because you will know that previously, before the COVID-19 pandemic, quite a number of refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants were sometimes denied access to basic care services. And we are saying as COMSA, during this time, we should not experience any discrimination by any nature for asylum seekers and refugees and migrants to access basic healthcare services, including the measures that have been put in place. And of course, with the Constitution, we have got the right to equality, which then stems the issue that everyone has got a right to before everybody is equal before the law, which then include refugees and asylum seekers and migrants to access justice. So where their rights has been violated. So the regulations, they are very much pretty clear on issues that needs to be addressed, including the issues that Sharon has touched on, the issue of spaza shops. And we should also maybe going forward look at how best can these permits that the spaza shop owners needs to access, and how are they getting access? Like the issue that you have raised, if the asylum seekers and refugees with expired permit get to be stopped by the police official, do the police official have this information? I think a lot of information and education needs to be done around such issue, educating the police officials, so that whenever they come or they come across asylum seeker or refugees and with an expired permit, they should be able to interpret it according to the regulations and according to the directive that came from the Department of Home Affairs in terms of not renewing the permit because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So those are some of the issues that I wanted to add on what Sharon has just indicated.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. But I also would like to ask to COMSA that in terms of how are the rights of babies or newborn babies or the children that during the lockdown. But I see Abigail here. I think that she's more working on that particular issue from COMSA. May I ask Abigail to just give us a few minutes of information, 2-3 minutes of information? What happens that if someone has a newborn baby during the lockdown, or that if they need to take their children to hospital? How does that work?
Thanks, Attila, and for everyone listening. We had a meeting with Save the Children. We have an interagency working group, and we all updated each other on issues relating to vulnerable children, which is a broad category, including separated and unaccompanied children, undocumented South African children, I can continue the list. So one of the major things is that Department of Affairs have suspended the issuing new birth certificates during this period. So the instruction from Department of Home Affairs is that the parents of a newborn child should keep their birth card or maternity card so that they can register the child once the lockdown is lifted. Now, I think similar to what Sharon has raised, that what this is going to mean at the end of the lockdown is a influx of people needing to register their children, and we already know the huge issues with difficulties and barriers to registering children. Mm-hmm. That is the communication that we've got so far. I think as organizations, we're in the process of drafting to Home Affairs to call for a more particular directive on how their contingency plans and making suggestions on actions to avoiding this. And then a number of other issues that have been raised around children's rights.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Abigail. So this is the procedure that how they should follow it up. This is what we've heard from Department of Home Affairs. So this is how we should carry on. We have a few questions, and then we have some that raising hands. Unfortunately, I'm unable to unmute you, but you can definitely use our chat box right down in the middle, and you can type your question or your comment to the Zoom group chat, so everybody will be able to read, and then we will try to also answer the questions. So I would like to come to you, Amir. So these are mainly the technical things, and then the rules and the regulations and things to do, but you as someone, an African Diaspora Forum as well, that which represents a number of people. And then I would like to ask you how these rules and this lockdown affecting the daily life of asylum seekers, refugees, and migrants in real life. And what are the challenges?
Attila, thank you very much. First of all, the migrants in South Africa have always actually been, scapegoated. Their rights have always been infringed, and mostly in the local community, among the most impoverished communities, in the townships and informal settlements, excuses were always there, and they have always been scapegoated that they are selling counterfeit goods. They are selling, contraband things, they are not adhering to the bylaws and all that. And we have seen, in many instances, the looting of actually shops, but this time round, the same pattern continues. And actually, not from the community that is now more receptive and more institutionalized xenophobia, in the sense that leaders at ministerial levels, that are a bit reckless, irresponsible, and to certain actually discriminatory towards the migrant community. One thing that actually they face as a challenge is actually the feeling of exclusion or discrimination. And I look at actually the operation of spazas and tuck shops. The first day, a day prior to the lockdown, the Minister of Small Business Development made it very clear that in the categories that actually will be exempted will be the grocery industry and the spaza shop, which almost 70 to 80% now are run by migrants from Ethiopia, Bangladesh, and Somalia. But the minister made a statement that after today, the law enforcement are extorting money, who are interfering with the businesses, harassing our members are using, which say that
Amir?
only South African the owners will be allowed, and actually the migrants will not be allowed. And this discriminatory utterances is what the police today are using. But And in the first instance, even in the first week, it was even difficult for most of the migrant community, despite the owners, to operate. But thanks to Lawyers for Human Rights, upon writing to the concerned ministers for undertaking, at least that actually engagement have helped. And in the last actually 3 weeks, despite, the constant daily intimidation, interference, harassment, and, bribery that go along with it, our business owners could actually breathe. And then beside other that, there is also exclusion in the relief assistance. And when the government said that, in every province, they will be provided, most of our members from the migrant community were excluded. And the only way they were excluded, they said only South Africans with a green 30-digit green barcoded ID, the resident and not the migrant. And this have resulted, many of the migrants who are youngsters in the countries and who are doing actually, the yellow collar job or, the hand and mouth to actually suffer. Hence, the need for the diaspora at least to start an initiation of at least making sure that, they do not, if they don't die of COVID-19, they may die of actually, hunger. And for them not to die, at least we must do a food drive within the migrants, which we have now extended also to South African communities where we also trade.
Thank you.
The other thing that is a big challenge is the exclusion of actually our members who are taxpayers and VAT collectors and are running almost 70% of the SPAZA or the food industry from the government stimulus plan. And it still continues. Challenges. One of the things that we see is a solution is to make sure that, we make sure the rights of the migrant during this difficult time is not actually infringed, and that we are very thankful of actually the pro bono lawyers and Lawyers for Human Rights, despite also being in the lockdown, at least assisting whenever the needs actually arises.
Yes.
Thank you.
Amir, right there that I would like to just come in. As we've since from the beginning that mentioned, also other speakers have mentioned, you mentioned as well, that the situation of, if I can say, poorest of the poor, or even the people that who are poor, that who are unable to work now. We have lots of, maybe millions of people who are unable to go to work. I don't know the numbers of domestic workers, for example. I don't know the numbers of people that are working. The other day I was thinking of, for example, car guards, that they are unable to work now. The domestic workers, or the people that who was working as a normal working class, they unfortunately are all lost their jobs, or they are unable to have any income. So it is really our responsibility to take care of them. As, for example, Universal Rights Association, we were part of a food parcel distribution. I think that took place 2 weeks ago. And then we just went into those communities and then tried to do our best with some sister organizations, or the partner organizations, I should say. I know that African Diaspora Forum, that I saw also on the news, that it was on, I think, Soweto TV, that I also saw yourself, Amir, that you went inside to those communities and made distribution. So how do you do this distribution? Do you distribute only to migrants, asylum seekers, or refugees, or non-South Africans, or do you distribute only to South Africans, or do you distribute to anybody who's in need? Can you just give us for 1 minute that how was that distribution went, and then how was the reaction of the community?
Attila, one thing that I like to make it clear is that to be discriminated doesn't mean you too also have to discriminate. Remember, we are in South Africa. We are enjoying the hospitality and the great receptive of these nations. We are
We have lost Amir.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Amir. carry on.
No, I said our members, okay, shortly I was interrupted. I said to be discriminated will not mean you too have to discriminate. Remember, our migrant business owners are trading among the most impoverished communities in the townships and the informal settlements. And we have got both, religion, social, rights to also look after the well-being of those clients of us who are supporting us, who are the backbone of the existence of this business, though in difficult situation, in this time where at least 70%, I can say, of both the local South Africans and also migrants are now used actually, into a vulnerable community that cannot actually afford. So what we did is that we started a campaign in Gauteng where we want to disseminate parcels to 10,000 households. That will not only be actually the South Africans, but it will actually include the migrants. But luckily, at least, we are now receiving the generosity is not felt. And at least, even though the government is discriminatory, there are a lot of organizations there that are willing at least to help and with food stuff. And at least our 10,000 parcel drive in the course of this week will be success. We currently did about 5,750. And tomorrow we will be doing most of part of Soweto in the western area, as well as actually, in Mfuleni or Sedibeng. But beside that, we also have a drive where we want to reach also the migrants. And through the assistance of actually generous community members, the Oppenheimers actually try.
Yes. Amir, you're breaking.
We received some, I'm breaking, someone is calling. We're also doing a feeding scheme, which we started with 350 plates. And currently we are doing 750, at least individuals within Mayfair and the inner CBD.
Okay. So as far as I understand, it wasn't a once-off thing. So it's still carrying on as it should. In fact, that once again,
whether it will be uplifted. Yes.
Sure. Once again, I would like to call upon everybody that who is listening us from watching us from Zoom or from our Facebook page. We will also post this also to our YouTube channel later on. So please that take care of the vulnerable one, take care of the needy one. As we mentioned, we are all one in this, and we should care for the other without doing any discrimination. And we as Universal Rights Association, we will also carry on that later on we will share on our social media accounts that the details of the distributions, that the future distributions. So please that contribute to this and then try to contribute as much as you can. So I will ask, we have lots, it seems like we have lots of questions on the right-hand side. I see, I couldn't read all of them, but we have questions that, but I would like to just ask each speaker, starting from Sharon, to wrap it up, make their last comments and give their suggestions to audience and to authorities, not more than 3 minutes. So Sharon, can we start with you?
Thank you, and once again, thank you to all the people who joined, and apologies that we couldn't respond to your questions, but maybe after this, if it's shared, we can directly through email or other ways respond. I want to just make a proposal. I think what's critical going forward is the need for us to consider inclusivity and solidarity. That's the key. So I would propose that the organizations that have made a contribution today, we discuss post this Zoom conversation a proposal of speaking out against the fact that the most vulnerable in our country are being excluded based on their nationality, and that we speak to the fact that we are Africans and that we should be standing in solidarity at this time, and more importantly, we speak to the science of why it doesn't make sense to exclude any person in our response. I think I just want to make 2 points. One that is really concerning me is, and it was brought to my attention by Doctors Without Borders, that the actual specimen submission form, so when you go and you've been suspected and you've been asked to do a test, and then you fill out a form, which will then be, the National Institute for Communicable Diseases has produced this form. You go to their website and you'll find the form. And the first column on that form says, it's required, and it's in bold. It says required your South African ID or a South African passport or your passport number. Now that means that if I am undocumented or if I have an asylum number, then my identity is not being recognized. And so we are excluding people. So it's not in our interest to be excluding people who could be positive for COVID-19 or who are being at risk then of contracting it if other members in their community have it and their blood tests are not returned and meeting what their status is. And I think that this, for me, represents the fact that I'm really concerned that while we've seen an incredible response we've been lauded internationally for the fact that we hit hard, we hit early, and there's clear leadership, but I still feel that the message and from organizing structures is that it's targeting citizens. It's not speaking to the people who are living in South Africa. And the only way we can respond is if we speak to, and we all are contributing. The lockdown is affecting all of us. We've heard from the other speakers that people can't work and they're respecting the lockdown. And so my call is that we issue some kind of statement representing fellow Africans, migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers, and calling on our government to be inclusive in its response, and why it's not in anyone's interest to exclude anyone, particularly the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. We will try to answer at least some of the questions that I will try my best. But I would like to just add something that to what you have said. You see, we need to understand that if we don't cover everybody, it will just pop up again. We will have second wave, we will have third wave, fourth wave. Even after 1 year, we still may have this virus a threat to our society and community. You know, your car guard may be an asylum seeker, and then he may not get a chance to access to a health system. And as long as he has the virus, we will have another wave of pandemic, another wave of spread. So on other cases, in some part of the world, when they finish the virus 100%, we may not finish the pandemic because of all these things that we are making this discrimination. We must make sure, as I said, we are on the same boat. And then as long as all of us are 100% right, this will never go away. So we should act wisely on that. Fulu, can I come to you and then ask you to just wrap it up and then do your last suggestions for 2 or 3 minutes, please?
Thank you very much, and thanks for coordinating this, and thanks for everyone who took part today. And thanks, Sharon, for raising such critical points, especially on the one on the forms, because of course, on its own it's a discriminative, because not only South African ID can be regarded on the form, excluding other payments that the government of South Africa issues. But one point that I want to raise is a strong monitoring on the regulation implementation on its social and economic activities to see that everything that is being proposed by the government as a relief to the current situation does not lead to a situation where discrimination become a norm, where we found exclusion of those who are non-national to be benefiting from all the things that the president has mentioned yesterday. I'm raising this, and I will make example to the unemployment insurance funds. As you will know, that refugees, asylum seekers, and economic migrants, they are required by law to contribute, if they are employed, to contribute towards the unemployment fund scheme to guard against unforeseen circumstances in terms of issues employment. And in the current situation, the president has made it clear that those who will be unable to receive their full salaries, they should apply through the Department of Employment to receive the unemployment benefit to top up their current salaries. So that should be advocated very strongly, to see that those as well that gets to a lot of salaries for livelihoods gets to be included. And the other issue that will be interesting to look about, or maybe to include on the press statement that Sharon proposed, is the issue of the car guard, those who are informally employed. You will remember or recall that last night, the president has made a call that there will be a grant that will be issued for those who are unemployed. I think he mentioned around 350 that is going to be paid out. We should monitor that to see that is inclusive. As Sharon has indicated, that we should look at issues of inclusivity on all those issues, because the COVID-19 or the coronavirus affects all, terms of whether you are an asylum seeker, refugees, or economic migrant, or you are a citizen of this country, because the suffering that is brought by the COVID-19 when it comes to hunger, poverty, and inequality affects us all the same. So I think there are quite a number of issues that on the statement we should be including to see that and monitor the violation and the abuse of the system and activities that the president has proposed on his last speech. I thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So Amir, just I will come to you just for the wrap it up for 1 or 2 minutes, please, if you have anything to say.
No, one thing, first of all, I welcome actually the suggestion by Sharon Ekambram that at least, we issued a statement. And I think it is timely, because when we had problem on the first week, the undertaking I requested from Minister did really help. And it was something that at least, we have seen. Even the troublesome law enforcement officers actually ceased to do that. And I think this exclusion aspect, I think is the right time. We don't only issue a statement, but also write to the concerns actually ministry, at least an undertaking from them. But I came to realize what COVID-19 have taught me is that even in death, the migrants are discriminated. I thought those who are living are discriminated, but when we lost the first Somali national, and I actually had to undertake for fear that everyone did not actually want, and the circumstance of the death wasn't known, I came to realize that even as a migrant, we don't actually, though we all go to the same graveyard, we don't pay the same amount when it comes to the caretaker. So even in death, we are discriminated. And I think that is most welcomed. The other, I have got also a scenario where a naturalized South African Somali went to his bookkeeper, and he is actually having more than 60 South Africans within his payroll, and they have been paying UIF. But before even the matter could proceed ahead, his accountant told him, yes, you are a South African by naturalization, but those who qualifies are only the previously marginalized community blacks and not came recently and attained documentation. So the discrimination is even with the lawyers that we engage and we actually paid. It is with the bookkeepers that we're using. So it is actually within all. And if you are discriminated even in death,
Amir, we lost you.
thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks,
So I will quickly just try to cover up at least some questions that we have. One question, we have lots of questions. In fact, one of them, that how migrants are paying off rentals for housing. That this is one of the questions. Do we have anything to say to this question? Yes or no, or one sentence?
In one sentence, if I come, yes,
yes,
have to pay as long as they are staying in the house. But in scenario where the migrant was actually, living on a weekly wages of 400, 500, and the business is closed, then it depends. I had a concern from the inner city. I had to even take it to the MMC, the intervention of the MMC. And at the end of the day, the caretaker who was giving them a problem did. So it depends on actually how your landlord is. But by law, the person is actually still residing in the house, you have to pay the rents.
Yes. Okay. And we have some other questions that some is asking that how can they get access to food parcels from the city of Johannesburg? Is there anything that they should do? They should apply, or how does this work? Anybody knows about this?
Let me find Fulu or Sharon before I jump in.
Yes, Sharon, Fulu.
I can come in on that one. I was speaking to someone from the city of Johannesburg, and I was still waiting for the response. I think the person who has raised that, I saw Abigail has sent her communication. Maybe she can forward us the details. Once I get the response, I can be able to directly respond to her or to him. But the other thing that was mentioned, just to add, yesterday the president did touch the issue of the food pass. They are going to be issued through South African Social Security Agency, which is SASSA.
Fulu, we lost you now. Fulu. Okay, we lost Fulu. That if he comes back, that he will complete the question and the answer. That I will carry on and then ask another one. During these kind of programs. I think everybody is able to still hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, we had some internet problem. Sorry about that.
No problem.
It's still coming on, but okay, let's do this. That because we already have the meeting more than 1 hour. I will just try to cover up another one maybe, or otherwise, we have the questions right here. You can also email these questions to us. We will try to cover up later on, and maybe that we will try to put it into the statement that we will prepare. So what we want from everybody here to follow us on our social media accounts, as most of you knows that at URAS Africa, or rather go to our website to uniras.org. We will be try to answer all these questions, and then we will try to put all these concerns into our statement. So I would like to thank each and every one of you, especially to our speakers, our panelists. We will be working on all these issues, and I would like to call upon everybody that we will try to carry on our online programs. We call it the URA Talks. We will have on economy very soon. We will have on media freedom and interaction between COVID-19 and media freedom. We will carry on the legal side of lockdown, and then how should we operate during the lockdown in terms of legal work. So please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us on our website. So once again, I would like to thank each one of you. Thank you so much. Hope to see you very soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coordinating and facilitating this.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Attila. Well done.
Thanks.